So here was my dilemma. I had it in mind today to maybe go and find a new location, go and do some exploring. But when I checked the weather forecast, it looked as if there was a possibility of a really nice sunset tonight, if it all comes together. And I wasn't sure if that location was going to allow me to take advantage of that. So my dilemma was, do I stick with plan A and go and visit that location, or do I go to another location where I may have already been before, but that would hopefully give me an opportunity to shoot a nice sunset if it all kicks off when the sun goes down? What did I decide to do, and how will it work out? Keep watching to find out. I hope you'll enjoy the video. If you do, and you're new here, don't forget to hit subscribe before you go. Hi everyone, thanks for joining me. I was looking at visiting a new location today. It was going to be one of the greenways, but when I looked at the weather forecast, we were seeing a forecast around sunset of a high percentage of high level cloud, very little middle cloud, very little low level cloud, and that can produce some really beautiful sunsets if that's what actually happens when the sun goes down. But I wasn't sure that the greenway that I was going to be on was going to offer me any real opportunities to take advantage of that. So I decided to visit another location, one that I've been to before, here at Cabo de Santa Pola. It's a big area of land high up between Alicante, Elche and Santa Pola. It's got a lighthouse on it. It's also got this quite fun walkway come observation platform that kind of sticks out over the cliff edge looking down, views out to Tabarca Island, and there's also some historical remnants from the Spanish Civil War which might be worth a quick look if if I'm walking around and exploring. You never know what you might find. I know there's some anti-aircraft gun kind of trenches, not the guns themselves, and likewise there's some big I think anti-ship gun emplacements, again not the guns themselves, and I know there's at least one bunker here as well. So I'm going to have a walk around, look for potential sunset compositions of course, but also see if there's something else I can photograph in the meantime. So I've already got a couple of ideas of things I could shoot later on once we get closer to sunset. One of them would be a similar composition to ones I've done before, shooting the lighthouse from those walkways, or using those walkways and observation platforms as a nice curving leading line. Now I said I have done that composition before, but I've always done it in the morning. I've never done it in the evening. Does depend on whether I think the sky over that way is going to light up, because the sun is going to be setting kind of over that way, so it's going to be, sort of 90 to 100 degrees out. We'll have to see. The other possibility, which I'm finding quite intriguing, is I come to the other side of the lighthouse and there's all these tufts of grass sticking up, and I'm thinking of a fairly tight crop in, maybe even a fairly longish focal length, using the tufts of grass, or the whole areas of tufts of grass going up in the foreground and then the lighthouse in the background, and cropping it in quite tight so that the lighthouse is still quite big in the frame. And I'm even thinking of slowing that exposure down a bit so that we keep a little bit of texture in the grass, but it's kind of moving in the wind because it is a bit breezy, and creating a sense of movement. I don't know, that's kind of appealing to me, and it would be quite a nice side light image, I think. So a couple of possibilities, but I shall come back to that soon. First of all, I'm going to go off and see if I can find something else to shoot. So what we've got here is some kind of bunker from the Spanish Civil War. And it's interesting how things have been repurposed here, because the lighthouse is actually one of the old 16th century watchtowers that are all along the coastline here. It's one of the square ones, and because it's obviously a perfect vantage point for the lighthouse, what they've done is basically refurbished it, stuck the light on the top and some buildings around the outside, ready to go. And here what they've done, they've taken this old bunker and they've stuck a geodesic marker on the top. So, repurposing things. Okay, so here is one of the what would have been the gun emplacements, presumably for the marine guns, the anti-ship guns. As I said, there's no guns here anymore, it's just the emplacement. And hello. My man and his dog. I guess this kind of calls into, some of my frustration of some of the things I see here. We've got a site here which is obviously of historical significance, could be something really nice, and it's covered in graffiti. I just don't understand it. Now, at least I will say that most of the graffiti that's here isn't the what I would consider to be the worst kind, the offensive kind, the swear words and crude depictions of various parts of the human anatomy. I've always resisted taking photos of this because of the graffiti, but I am trying to be more creative, so I don't know whether to try to do something here. Here's the second one of these gun emplacements. It's very, very similar to the other one. I might grab a shot of it just because things like the signboards and benches and things are in different places, so it might make for a better image. A different and tricky image for me. Normally I need a positive emotional connection with the scene I'm shooting. I need to like what I see in order to create. But in this case my emotions were much more negative, and when it came time to edit the image I chose to highlight rather than hide the parts of the scene that made me feel that way. I don't know if I can say I like the image, but I am strangely pleased with it. Yeah, okay, this is the one of the anti-aircraft gun positions. Well, a lot of that high cloud is burning off, and I'm not really sure if we're going to get the fantastic sunset that I was hoping for, but yeah, that's the way it goes. But I'm going to have a go at that image I talked about earlier with the grass and the lighthouse. This is going to be an unusual one for me, because normally whenever I photograph a lighthouse, I normally always try to have the sea in there, because I think it kind of gives it a sense of place. Because this one, there will be no sea. There'll just be the lighthouse and the grass and some sky. I'm thinking I'm going to shoot this probably with the 55 to 200 at 55mm, unless that proves to be just a little bit too tight a crop for where I can shoot here, in which case I'll go to the 15 to 45. I'm going to set it up and The sun is dropping, we're just over an hour from sunset, so we're actually starting to get some quite nice side light, but I'd quite like to be set up and ready to take advantage of some nice light on these grasses as the as the sun gets lower, and before it gets too low that the light goes off and the grasses all go dark. Because I'm going to be shooting telephoto, or long focal length, I'm probably going to end up focus stacking, because I'm going to want to make sure that, of course, the lighthouse needs to be sharp, and even though the grasses in the foreground are going to be blurry through movement, if it all goes according to plan, I still kind of want any detail that shows through to look sharp. There is a difference between that kind of deliberate motion blur and just being out of focus. So what I'll probably do is set up, focus on the lighthouse, take a shot, and then focus on the foreground and take a few shots, maybe at different exposure times, just to see which looks the best. So let's get set up now. My first thoughts were I was going to be very low down for this, but because of the telephoto I don't think that really works. So I'm a little bit higher up, the camera's maybe, I don't know, metre and a bit above the ground. I've picked a section of grass which hasn't got any other distractions in it, there's no big other plants in there or anything else. I've got the lighthouse in the middle of the frame at the top with a little bit of sky around, which hopefully might pick up some cloud textures and look quite nice. It is 55mm and a vertical composition. Now at the moment, at f11, my exposure time is around 1/100th of a second. Obviously, if I want to get some nice blurring in that grass, I'm going to need to change that. I'm going to start off by putting on first a circular polarizer and then a 6-stop ND filter, and that should let me get some nice blur in there, and then it's just going to be a case of waiting and seeing what happens with the conditions. I've got circular polarizer on and a 6-stop ND filter, f8 ISO 100 1 second, so we'll give that a go. At the moment I'm focused on the lighthouse, and then I'll do another couple of shots seeing what it looks like on the grasses. You know what, I think we need to go a lot longer. I'm actually going to try putting a 10-stop filter on and see what that does. 10-stop filter, 30 seconds. Yeah, that looks quite interesting actually. If a thing's worth doing, it's worth overdoing. So you know what, I'm going to go to f16 and a 1-minute exposure, and we'll try that. We're just going to lose the light off of this grass now, because the sun over there behind me is going to disappear behind those trees, and I'm doing one last shot at 2 minutes just to see, and then I'm going to decide which one I think looks the best, and that's the one I'll show you. What I'm inclined to do is just leave the camera set up. I've taken the 10-stop filter off, still got the circular polarizer on at the moment, and then I'm going to hang on and I'm going to see if the sky lights up, and see what happens when the actual light comes on the lighthouse, if it comes on early enough. I'm just going to wait and see. It is getting quite chilly here though, that's the only thing. Yeah, I've had to break out the winter hat, getting a little bit chilly on my poor uninsulated head. A little bit of colour out that way in the direction of sunset, and there's some quite nice kind of pinkish tones out that way, and there's even, I don't know if it will show up very well on this wide angle on the video, quite a nice pink moon out there as well. There's not a lot behind the lighthouse. There is a little bit of wispy cloud there that might still might pick up some light, and I can just about see, they're just turning on the lighthouse light now, and I think maybe another 15-20 minutes and then I'll pack up and head for home before I get too cold. So while I'm kind of waiting around here, I've just been having a quick look on the back of the camera at some of the shots that I've taken. I'm not entirely convinced that my idea of having that blurry grass in the foreground has worked quite the way I hoped. It's a job to tell on the little screen. I won't know till I get it back on the computer, but it doesn't look as if the blurring has worked quite the way that I wanted it to. Maybe it just wasn't moving enough, even with a long exposure. But nevertheless, I don't think the images are wasted, because I think there's a possibility that I could take these compositions and make them a square crop, take out some of that foreground, and then blurry or not, it will probably still work, because the lighthouse looks quite nice, the sky looks quite nice, the light looks quite nice, even the light on the grass looks quite nice. So I've got my fingers crossed that those images aren't wasted, and I am now just still waiting around, just hoping for a bit more glow in the sky. But it does look as if that thin cloud, that high, even though it's high level cloud, it's actually quite low down in the sky, and I'm not sure it's going to come out very well against the lighthouse, but it's definitely worth hanging around for another 10 minutes or so. Okay, we're now 35 minutes after sunset. All of the colours have faded. We're not going to get anything else now. Didn't quite work out the way I expected. First of all, I was kind of hoping for a really, really nice sunset, and it was very pleasant. It was very pretty, and I've thoroughly enjoyed it. But it wasn't that really beautiful sunset that I was kind of hoping when I saw the weather forecast. But as I said, I've enjoyed it anyway. The other thing that didn't really work the way I thought was, I thought I'd be doing lots of different compositions here, and it's actually turned out to be pretty much all about this one scene. But that's okay, sometimes it's just worth working a single composition as the light changes. It's been a lovely afternoon, evening out. It is getting chilly on this cliff top. I'm heading back to the car. It's getting pretty dark and you probably can't see me, and I can't be bothered to get a torch out. So I'm just going to say very quickly, I hope you've enjoyed the video. If you have, please give it a like, share it on social media, leave me a comment. If you've enjoyed this video and you're new here, don't forget to hit subscribe before you go. And as always, I really appreciate you taking the time to watch, so thank you very much. And until the next video, bye.